Hello, welcome to the Analyst at the Ashes with me, Simon Hughes.
And I'm Simon Mann.
It's a sunny evening in Sydney. It's a glorious day. It's been a glorious day for one man, but not really so much for England. Jacob Bethell making his first ever first-class 100, his first Test 100, his first Ashes 100. An amazing innings, an absolute classic actually, but he couldn't really stop England from, well, basically struggling. So the sum total of the day is England lead by 119 with only 2 wickets left. So it's pretty done. In fact, the Betfair odds, for your information, at one point when Bethell and Brooke were going well and England were 219 for 3, there was actually, with a lead of 39.40, there was actually a little bit of hope with 15% chance of England winning, but that has now declined to 5. It's a 94% chance of Australia going to win tomorrow and making it 4-1. So your prediction of 3-1, well, it's gone. Basically. Unless it's a thunderstorm tomorrow and it's a draw, 3-1's gone. It's going to be 4-1 or 3-2. And there's just a little hint of opportunity for England there, isn't there? I mean, they protected 130 in that famous match at Headingley in 1981. Bowled Australia out for 117 and won by about 20 runs. But, you know, lightning doesn't really strike twice very often.
No, it's not going to be a draw, is it? Unless someone comes and pours oil on the pitch overnight, which I don't suggest would be a good idea, as they did back at Headingley in 1975, the George Davis protest. What I would say, Yoz, is that England's odds are better tonight than they were last night, because I think last night they were 3%, and now they've got a 5% chance. That's still alive in the game. The pitch is still playing pretty well. I mean, at times today, there were some lively deliveries. I mean, Jacob Bethell got one that struck him on the helmet, on the side of the helmet, one that really reared up. And there was another ball to duck it as well that hit him on the glove when he nicked it off to slip and was dropped by Cameron Green. But no, Australia going to need a minimum 120, possibly a few more. I mean, unless by some miracle they can somehow conjure 60, 80, whatever for the last 2 wickets. Seems extremely unlikely. Australia taking no risks whatsoever by putting the field deep, so it's very hard to hit 4s, and the new ball is only 5 overs away, so good luck with getting out of that one. But we have seen today a very special innings from a player that I think spectators, supporters, whatever of England have kind of doubted, haven't they? Because he's been pushed forward at a very young age. This man has got what it takes to be a top-class international cricketer, and I think people have doubted that. They've seen perhaps his dismissal at the Oval against India last summer, the fact that at times he's looked a bit scratchy, but today, well, I think it was on display for everyone to see what all the fuss was about.
Yeah, it must have hugely satisfied any TNT sports listeners who were watching that. And don't forget, you can watch the final day's play on TNT Sports if you go to EE Virgin or Sky, or of course you can stream it on Discovery Plus as well. You must be at least 18 to get a subscription though, and terms and conditions of course apply. Do you know, I'm sure watching on today, there was a lot of sort of happiness and relief when Jacob Bethell reached that milestone. Obviously within himself, it was his 28th first class match and about his 45th innings, and lots of people have been talking about him before, so the relief and happiness would have been intense for him, achieving that under the intense Ashes spotlight at the Sydney Cricket Ground, a great venue of course to achieve such a milestone. Off the field, the Barmy Army were up celebrating as one, because of course they've seen his progress in one-day internationals and probably in the 100 as well, and hoped that he could achieve this next level of performance. And also his father, of course, was watching in the stand, and he must have been an absolutely nervous wreck while Jacob was getting through the 90s, 96, which was his previous highest score, and then singles gradually nudging his way to that landmark. He was on 99 for about, well, it seemed like an age. It was actually only about 8 balls, but the brilliant bowling of Scott Boland just tempting him to have a little dash outside off stump, and he resisted that temptation and eventually got to his 100 with that drive over the top off the spin of Bo Webster, and a wonderful moment. For me, I was relieved as well, because I'd kind of maybe done a bit of an OTT piece for the Sunday Times the week before, and even last summer had pitched in to say he should be England's number 3, and people were going, well, what do you know? What are you talking about? He's never made a first-class 100. And then when he made 40 at Perth at the MCG last week, I kind of waxed lyrical about that innings, and people were going, well, what's he actually done? How can you say he's the special one that's arrived? And I don't think that the newspaper necessarily helped me by also saying a special talent is here, having made 40, quite tricky situation. But today, that was an innings of total class, which fortunately for me kind of, emphasised the points I was making before. The things I'd seen about him, his movement, his elegance, his time at the crease, his excellent defence, his shots forward and back, his pull shots, his temperament, his calm temperament. And he came in the first over, didn't he? After
all England number 3s do in this series, don't they?
Absolutely. Yeah, Mitchell Starc now taking the first wicket in the first over 4 times in this series, which is almost a record. It's just one less than the record, in fact, but an amazing performance, getting Zach Crawley again in the first over. So Bethell's in as an opener, and it was interesting actually in his interview with Nasser Hussain on the Sky Sports Cricket podcast a few days ago, him saying when Nasser asked him, what about batting at number 3 and the pressures of that, do you feel you're ready for it? And he said, well, yeah, I've always wanted to be a top order player, and though I haven't experienced it much, I feel I'm ready to do it. In fact, he even said on that podcast, I think I'm pretty good, he said. Well, it's quite a big call, that, from a 22-year-old who's played a handful of first-class matches and test matches, but the proof out there today, he is pretty good. Yeah,
we're in the Sydney Airport flight path. It was take-off for Jacob Bethell today, wasn't it? At last, people saw his worth and saw what you saw in him. I don't think you said he should bat at number 3. I was just remind everyone, you said he was going to bat at number 3 in the India series, didn't you?
I did, and that was back in May, actually, when, of course, England was starting out in the Test series in the summer, first Test against Zimbabwe, and he played well at number 3, kind of thrust in at number 3 when Ollie Pope was put down the order to 6 because he was keeping wicket. So Bethell was thrust in at number 3 in New Zealand, and he did well, didn't he? He acquitted himself extremely well, and I thought that was absolutely the right thing to move forward, to put him in at number 3 for the Zimbabwe Test and the Test that followed, but it didn't happen. They stuck loyally with Ollie Pope instead. I think Stokes put his hand up for Ollie Pope there, even though the other selectors were quite keen to get Bethell in, but Stokes, a loyal man, stuck with Ollie Pope, and finally in these last 2 Test matches Bethell has got his chance, and I can't really fault that innings. Okay, so there was the odd player miss, but the conditions were difficult. The ball was bouncing unevenly with the new ball. You've got Starc at one end, you've got Boland at the other. Probably one of the most relentless, accurate, nagging bowlers you'll ever get in Test cricket, and a little bit of help in the pitch. And obviously the Aussies all round the bat like vultures, ready for the little edge, the little mistake, probably chipping away, chirping away at him verbally as well. And he just got through that, didn't he? And he composed himself, and he only got 3 singles in his first 20 balls, but he wasn't flustered, he wasn't panicked into playing any wild shots, and gradually he got into the flow of his innings, and it was just beautiful to watch.
Yeah, it was. I thought, calm, assured, and a good shot maker as well. He's nice all around the wicket, isn't he? He's such a strong player, and I also like the fact that he was prepared to bide his time in the 90s. You alluded to it, that he was on 99 for a while, he was on 96 for a while, and just taking singles, and he ticking over 1-1-1, and he was losing the strike as well. Harry was trying to give it to him, and he got it back, and then he might have to wait a bit more because he couldn't find the run he needed at the end of an over, so a bit more waiting time. He said he was he's nervous, his heart must have been like pounding, but he stayed calm. In the end, he probably thought, where's this run coming from? And he took Webster up over the top, and a lovely moment. And you mentioned his family here. I think his dad was in tears watching that. I remember last summer watching, or it might have been the summer before, but I remember clearly watching Michael Vaughan watching Archie Vaughan play on the stream when he was playing for Somerset, early days, might have been his debut or something like that. And the utter nervousness of Michael just watching his son playing county cricket. Imagine what it must have been like for Jacob Bethell's dad to watch his son, approaching 100 at the SCG, Ashes Test match, and never made a first class 100. He got an international 100 against South Africa. Now he's got a first-class 100, a Test 100. He gets rid of that now, doesn't he? That tag, and he can go on and progress in his career. I mean, look, you don't go over the top and say, this is the man that's going to go on and emulate Joe Root or whatever. But it's a really promising start, and he'll be back here in 4 years' time, and England will be looking to him as clearly as a major player in the future.
So we sound very biased. Of course we are, a little bit. We try not to be, but I suppose inevitably, because we're English, we are slightly biased. So let's get an Australian view of Jacob Bethell. So I spoke to Justin Langer, the fantastic opening bat for Australia for so many years, also a left-hander, of course, and I asked him what he thought of Jacob Bethell.
I really like the look of Jacob Bethell. I love how fluid he is. He's one of the few batters I've seen this series who really moves front and back foot, which is a good sign. We're always taught if they bowl full, you move forward. If they bowl short, you move back. And I've loved how he's played the cut shot, back foot shot. I love how he's played the pull shot behind square leg and through mid-wicket, which is a sign of a player who's getting into great position, but also has got some time, so he's seeing the ball early. Probably my favourite shot of almost the whole series was that back foot drive he played, not the one that went behind point, the one that went through cover. To get that power tells me you're going to be in great position, but also you're watching the ball closely and you're really loose and fluid in your hands. So to see that, we haven't seen him play spin yet, so time will tell, and he'll get some part-time spin here. But so far the signs are really positive. I also love that he bowls a little bit of off spin, and I also love the way he catches. And you often tell a great athlete by the way they throw a ball and the way they catch a ball. So, it's a good package so far, and let's see how he goes.
What would be your advice now after this series? He's got a lot of T20, and then potentially the IPL, and then straight into a Test series in England. Would you tell him, if you were his coach, to play more 4-day red ball cricket?
My view always has been that the great players adapt. And he's showing here with very little red ball cricket, very little, that he has got a lovely game. Because he moves, he's fluid. And also his temperament. Scott Boland in that last session bowled, I think, 15 overs for 17 runs.
11 overs for 15.
Well, 11 overs, 15 runs, right? So that means he also he's not just going out and teeing off like we talk about sometimes with predominantly white ball players. Great temperament, because he got through that, and then he capitalised on Green, he capitalised on Stark, who's been the standout bowler. So, and he hasn't had much T20 cricket. I mean, red ball cricket in the past. So he's shown he's got the game. I think as long as he's playing the game of cricket, and he's playing and making lots of runs, then I think he will adapt, because that's what all the great players do.
One final question. As a coach, if you see a player play a bad shot, for example, random example, Jamie Smith in that first innings, do you say anything to them when they come back in afterwards, or at some point? Or do you say, hard luck, learn from it?
No, sometimes I wouldn't say something straight away, but you'd pick your moment. But because they know they've messed it up.
Yeah, but someone like that's made the mistake several times.
Yeah.
Doesn't it need someone fairly strong occasionally to say something?
Of course.
So before you introduce Justin Langer, you say we're a bit biased. I don't think we are. I don't think I'm biased, actually. I try to be as clear-minded and as analytical and as straight down the line as possible. But when you see an innings like that, you see clearly a player of immense talent. When you see an early Steve Smith or whatever, you see a player of immense talent. When you see a promising young bowler coming to the game. I remember seeing Joe Root playing Nagpur, and you thought this is clearly a guy with an immensely high ceiling, and that's what we I think try to see and assess. So, okay, you might want him to do well because you're English, but I think we hopefully say what we see.
Yeah, and what I liked about what Langer said actually was that he notices athletic attributes that other than his batting. He's
a very good
fielder. The way he moves around, his attitude on the field, the fact that he's encouraging people all the time, he's urging them on, he's engaged with the game. Actually, whereas in fact, interestingly, Stuart Broad was observing during England's fielding today that some of the body language of some of the other players, for instance, Duckett, looked a little bit out of sorts and sort of out of it. Whereas he noticed with Bethell and Root at first slip is always clapping the bowlers and always alive to the opportunity of a run out, things like that. He's really buzzing all the time, despite his age and his length of service. He's still on it all the time. And Bethell is definitely like that. And I think that was the thing that Langer picked up on as well. And just the class that he has, the time he had to play, and we're going on and on here, aren't we? I mean, it was an exquisite innings actually, and so he made his first class 100 in his 27th first class match, 28th first class match, and his 45th innings. Now, somebody else that you've probably heard on BBC had an even longer wait for his first class 100, and he also made it in a Test match. Kumar Sangakkara, who played 50 first class matches before he made 100 in a Test match, and in any match, and that was his 75th innings. So Bethell's beaten him by quite about 30 innings actually. I mean, obviously many other players make their 100 much earlier in their career, their first 100. So there's no harm in waiting. Good things come to people who wait.
Yeah, well, if Kumar Sangakkara is anything to go by, then look, it's about how you progress from here, isn't it? And so, of course, the spotlight is going to be on him now, because you play an innings like that, then the interest, or whatever the focus, ramps up, and he's got all that. I mean, he's got to go to the T20 World Cup as well, and he has got that white ball game. And what you want to see him do is clearly progress in the red ball game, because England need a player. I mean, they've been absolutely crying out for a really solid, assured number 3, and they haven't had it in this series. Well, they haven't had a solid, assured opening pair in this series as well, because Crawley's averaged 28, Duckett's averaged 20. It's been a real problem. So they are going to be looking to the future now, and the players that can nail down their positions in this team. And you've got Bethell, you've got Root, and for all the inconsistency of Harry Brook in this series, you've got Brook as well. I mean, he is a very, very talented player. You look at him and you almost just want to say, come on, Harry, you've got so much, make the most of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, we'll take a quick break, and we'll go to the break. If you're watching this on YouTube, so you can go to the Analyst YouTube channel to watch our podcast, and if you're watching it, we'll just play you here that beautiful moment when Jacob Bethell got to his first class and Test 100, and also just a little hint of that shot that Justin Langer talked about as well, that back foot punch through the offside with a straight bat. Just have a watch of that as we go to the break, and afterwards we'll talk about the rest of England's batting today.
So Bethell obviously was the big positive today, and he'll be back for more tomorrow. But there were obviously quite a few things that went wrong for England today. Ben Stokes, I suppose, what can you say? Well, at least the injury happened right at the end of the series rather than earlier in the series, because he's been a vital bowler for England in this series. He hasn't scored many runs. He came out today basically on one leg. It's difficult for him to manoeuvre himself at the crease, and he nicked off to slip. And the other thing as well, it's another injury, but he will have time to recover before England's next Test match, which is another 6 months away.
So I mean, I suppose it's sort of, in a way, it embodies England's struggle, doesn't it? That Stokes has given absolutely everything, and he's broken right at the end of the series. Yeah. And he could hardly walk when he came out to bat, in fact, and it didn't last long either. But what a titanic effort he's put in to try and wrestle the initiative back from Australia, and obviously failed to do it. And he looked a pretty damaged man at the end. But I'm sure as Mr. Indestructible, he'll probably come back again, even stronger next time. I heard a story actually that he'd been bowling a lot in practice, and maybe he'll learn from that his body just only has so much to give in the future. So England, finally got Australia out, and then they were able to go in and bat. And I mean,
what did you think of
started-
England's batting sort of overall? We talked about Jacob Bethell. What about the rest?
Obviously, Crawley, I think, was a bit unlucky. I think it was a valid leave, and he got LBW. Duckett looked a bit better, but he still got out playing that half bat shot, which you never saw Jacob Bethell play. He dragged one on with a bat at 45 degree angle, and you just can't get away with that in Australia for long. And this was something that we pointed out right at the start. Duckett would have to adjust that. You notice with someone like Bethell, he either plays it with a straight bat or a completely horizontal bat, nothing in between, or very rarely in between. And that's what got Duckett into trouble. Root today, I thought, struggled. I mean, he looked tired actually, and he suffered a forensic examination from Scott Boland, who bowled absolutely brilliantly. His first 11 overs went for only 15 runs, and he was at the Root and Bethell the whole time. Amazing performance. Root just couldn't get him away, and he tried hard, but in the end was pinned LBW. A little bit unlucky again, one just clipping the top of the stumps, but it was clicking the stumps, so umpire gave it out, he had to go.
Yeah, it was umpire's call. What do you think Root will make of his series here? I mean, a couple of hundreds. It's been some feast, definitely, hasn't there? I mean, he's got to the top of the mountain in terms of making not just 100 in Australia, but 2. And it looks as if they're both going to be in losing causes as well, which is not his fault. He's got 138 not out, 160. Then you say, "Come on, team, support me here. Help me out." But there's been also quite a lot of famine in this series from him as well. Some of his flaws in Australia have been exposed.
Cummins obviously got him out twice at Adelaide, didn't he? I mean, he's up against a very good attack in conditions which are quite helpful. And to have scored 200 is pretty good, I think. I think he should be overall pretty satisfied. I mean, today he missed a ball which he normally would work away through mid-wicket, and I think it was a measure of Boland's skill that even though Root was actually batting out of his crease to try and negate the LBW, Boland still managed to produce a ball which was just trimming the bails and got through past his defence and hit him on the pad and was just trimming the bails. So I think he'll be reasonably proud of it. I mean, obviously we want more, he always wants more, but 200s in fighting causes on slightly helpful pitches against excellent bowlers,
when he's never done it before,
is pretty good.
Yeah.
Harry Brook again flattered to deceive today. I mean, he played some lovely shots, and then he played some wild shots, and towards the end of his 42 he looked more and more fallible. He kept trying to back away to Stark and try and swish him over the slips and things like that, and you thought he's lost his focus here, whereas Bethell at the other end was just knocking it around calmly. Brooke was trying to exert himself on the bowling, and in the end, pretty good ball, I suppose, from Beau Webster, turned sharply, LBW, but he was sort of looking fragile anyway, wasn't he? He was looking vulnerable.
I mean, the fascinating thing with Harry Brook is projecting ahead is what sort of player he's going to be when he comes here in 4 years' time. Is he going to be a champion, an absolute champion cricketer by then, or will he be still delighting but still making the same mistakes? I think that's the fascination. He's got time on his side. He's probably got another, at least another Ashes series, probably 2 Ashes series in Australia. Anyway, to be decided on that. I mean, again, he got a good start today, didn't he? He played nicely.
He looks so good, doesn't he? He's got so much time and things. It's in the head, isn't it? It's in the head. He's just got to calm down a bit. And in a way, his dismissal, and then Will Jacks, who was promoted up the order because of Ben Stokes being injured, those 2 dismissals, that sort of 3-ball spell, when Jacks lobbed one out to deep mid-wicket, second ball was caught very well caught by Cameron Green. In a way, that was the sort of signature that Bazball doesn't work in Australia, wasn't it? Because Harry was trying to hit one off the back foot against the ball turning, quite a good delivery, and 2 balls later, Will Jacks, without any time playing himself in, tries to launch one over deep mid-wicket, gets it wrong. Very smart catch by Cameron Green, but a stupid shot. And this is our Betfair exchange today, isn't it? Has Bazball died? Well, I suppose the West Australian newspaper said it died at Adelaide, and the body will be cremated and sent back to Heathrow Airport. But this was the final kind of nail in the coffin today, wasn't it?
I mean, and what's fascinating about the future is will Brendan McCullum still be the coach? I mean, the word seems to be that he will be, as long as he's prepared to adapt his ways in the future and just to kind of change the way England play in the future. But is he kind of like a coaching purist for his own philosophy and say, well, no, it's kind of my way or the highway? I mean, he did sort of imply, didn't he, when he kind of said, yeah, we've made mistakes and I need to learn, that it's suggesting that he is prepared to, you know, to learn, to adapt. And actually, in life in general, I mean, everyone needs to do that, don't they? If you don't get things right, you think, well, hold on, what went wrong there? What can I do to improve? You know, this actually didn't work. Let's change, try to improve, do it better next time in a slightly different way. So, I mean, look, things can change. If the T20 World Cup goes horribly wrong, then, you know, who knows what happens. But I mean, that seems to be the word, that the hierarchy will be given the chance to kind of make amends, adjust. There'll be people howling and saying, no, it's failed, you know, you've got to get rid of them. And you can also see the justification for that as well, you know, because they said this is the series of our lives, this is what we've been building to, and they, you know, said lots of mistakes have been made in preparation and selection and, you know, all sorts of other areas as well. So I mean, that's what the hierarchy at the ECB need to sort out. But again, you know, Australia series, they're tough away from home. Most England teams lose here. And is it something more fundamental with English cricket that struggles to win here, win in India, for example? You know, I think you've got to have that kind of like a go for, you know, what is going to make England an elite Test team, and that's what you've got to pursue. And of course, against that, you've kind of got the interest of the county game, which, you know, people who follow county cricket, I mean, they want England to do well, but also they want their county to do well. So you've got those two things kind of knocking together. And how do you make that happen? How do you say, right, our aim is to be World Test champions, you know, number one, to win in Australia and to win in India? To me, that needs to be like front and centre, the priority for the English game.
I mean, that's what the central contracts were first introduced to achieve, to make sure that these guys were looked after. Once you've chosen your best players, that they're given central contracts and they regard England as their team rather than their county.
But it's also about producing the players that earn those central contracts to do well in Australia, in India, and to be World Test champions as well.
I think that's right, but I think it's also about being open-minded to bring other people in. Just because they've got central contracts doesn't mean they should be guaranteed a place. Yeah. And that's tended to happen a bit too much. And I think, you know, the thing that needs to be changed, if we're talking about McCullum's philosophy, is this sort of no consequence thing. You know, no consequences, whatever you do, you're still in the side. That doesn't work. You've got to perform. It's a performance-based, it's a meritocracy. And if you don't perform after a few games, you're out.
So let me ask you a question then. You know, first Test match of the summer. I'm not asking you to say who should be in necessarily at the moment, but you know, you go down that batting order. Say, does that Crawley survive? Average 28 here, averaging 32 over, you know, well over 60 Test matches.
It's so difficult to know. I mean, the thing is, I mean, the Aussies like him. The Aussies think he's quite good, and that isn't just because they think it can get him out in the first over. You know, they do quite admire his ability, and I quite like his calmness. And his ability to play, but he doesn't convert enough. One of the reasons he's got an average of 30 is because he gets a lot of low scores, but then when he gets going, he doesn't convert it into a massive score, except very occasionally.
So does Ben Duckett survive?
Well, I think Ben Duckett does, because he's a different sort of player. He's quite difficult to bowl at in certain conditions. He's had a wake-up call here, but I think he's good enough to be able to adapt his game. And I like, you know, and they've got, if you look at their track record, they have had consistent, they average it opening pair, they average round about just under 50, which is good for an opening pair. The trouble is, they're not consistent individually, are they? It's either one or the other kind of thing often, with in terms of a big score. So, listen, let's leave that debate for tomorrow. Otherwise, we'll be here all night.
No,
it's starting to get dark.
I know where the sun's going down on us. Perhaps the sun's going down on Bazball. But the point, you know, so the only point I was trying to make, and I'm not going to ask you to go through individually, but so those two have got question marks over them. But you know, Bethell 3, Root 4, Brook 5, no problem. Stoke 6. So the only other, you know, if you say those top two survive and the other next 4 survive. You know, what about Jamie Smith? He's the, you know, the one of the top 7. He was run out tonight, mixed up with Jacob Bethell, kind of like just put the tin hat on his series, really, doesn't it? To be run out in a mix-up. So people are saying, no, there's got to be wholesale changes, and you're saying, actually, I quite like Crawley, I quite like Duckett. And actually you can see their virtues,
They work
can't you?
together.
You
well,
can see
if
their
they
virtues.
stay in, then they work together. But
Yeah.
they need to tighten up a bit, I think. And maybe, they're given 3 tests rather than the whole summer or something. And, they need to seriously look at some other players as well. And say, okay, if you don't perform in the next 3 tests, we'll bring in Haseeb Hameed or someone like that.
And what about
whoever's
county
performing
cricket?
well.
Do you say right? You've all got to go and get some runs in county cricket.
Absolutely. I would definitely say they've got to go and get runs in county cricket, because that's getting into the flow of batting and making runs is fundamental. So yeah, absolutely. So look, it's worth tuning in tomorrow or tonight, whatever time you're watching on this podcast, because there is a little bit of cricket left, and you can appreciate a bit of Bethell. He's now got to try and farm the strike with the last couple of batsmen. It'll be interesting to see how he does that. It's going to be a beautiful day here tomorrow, very good forecast, big crowd. England have a tiny little opportunity.
Let me give you a precedent for a team successfully defending a score like this. 1994, admittedly a long time ago, South Africa played here at the SCG. They set Australia 117 to win, and Australia made 111. Glenn McGrath was the last man out, caught and bowled. Fanny de Villiers took 6 wickets. But I wonder whether that South African attack was just a bit better than this England attack, especially as there's going to be no Ben Stokes in it. England are 120 runs short, something like that, you feel? 140 runs short?
It's one of those if only. If they'd made just a few more and set Australia 200 plus, 240 say, you're right, then it would have been, they might still get another 50, say. They could do.
Yeah.
And it will make it an interesting game, but you do feel those Betfair odds are about right. Australia are heavy favourites tomorrow to make it 4-1.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, but England need a last day miracle in the Ashes, and miracles don't happen very often. But we have seen something special today.
Yeah, we have. And you can actually read about that if you read my blog on Substack as well, the Crickverse. I've done a bit of a piece about Bethell as well. So listen, thanks for listening, thanks for watching. We'll be back tomorrow at the end of the day, at the end of the tour, to review everything, wind everything up. And also, of course, don't forget you can watch the final day on TNT Sports starting at 11 p.m. UK time.
It's nearly dark, it's time to go. Thanks for listening, thanks for watching, goodbye for now.